papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, papa, zaki na venger yo. Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye zaki zafè ya yo. Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki na venger yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zafè ya yo. Grenadye nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki na venger yo. Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye zaki zafè ya yo. Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki zafè ya yo. Grenadye Alaso, zaki zafè ya yo. Nanpren maman, nanpren papa, zaki na venger yo.
Good afternoon.
This French general was actually killing.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Vertieres Day to all Haitians. This is Èzili Dantò, and this is our free Haiti teaching on Vertieres for 2013. So 220 years ago, our ancestor did something that has not ever been done in human history. And today, as every Vertieres Day since the occupation started on the bicentennial, I have done a teach-in for you, for us. We are the Haitiens. It is because of us that a new moral ground started on planet Earth. And because of that, the savages that we beat are constantly coming back because the idea of freedom is not in their spirit collectively. So, November 18, 2022. So, here, excuse me, 1803. I knew I was going to do that. 1803. So, this is where we are. Okay. Since February 1802, Napoleon Bonaparte had sent his brother-in-law, General Leclerc, to come and re-enslave our ancestors. That's what they came to do. Another expedition later on went to Guadeloupe. And now we are in October of 1803. Let me make you understand how important this battle was and how it is important for you, Haitiens, to study this battle, to study the revolution, and not make the mistakes of the schooled Negroes are making, because they are so into what is proper to this savage that they constantly sell out Desalin's legacy. But we fight back, and we will from one generation to the next until all of humanity is free. And it starts with Haiti. What did Vertieres do? Vertieres abolished slavery, the systematic rape of African men, women, and children as something moral for these so-called enlightened people. Their academics write about us in the most foul ways, but that is their job. They're propagandists. I am going to tell you not only what happened on November 18, 1803, but the spirit that came with that, the elements, the fire, the water, the rock, the air, brise montagne, the ocean, the Middle Passage that most of these Africans, 500,000 of them enslaved. And that's not counting the Maroons in the mountains, living free. So in 1503, we had already been ravaged in Africa by Arab slavery for over 1,000 years. And now here comes the Neanderthal from Europe. His eyes, they love glitter. They love murdering. They love rape. That was the first thing Christopher Columbus did when he got to Haiti. Haiti has so many significances, and I've been doing this for so long. We're going to have a question session where you can go ahead and ask me anything that I missed or that you would like to know about. But essentially, I'd like to cover today the specifics of Vertieres, how it influenced the world and helped free millions of human beings. Millions. You won't hear that from I could name their names, from these academics, because they focus only on the fact that Janjak Desalin killed about 3,000 white people that had stayed in Haiti after we won our independence. That's all they focus on. Look at what they're doing right now in Israel. Imagine if they had spent 300 years of being raped, sodomized, burnt, cut. Look what they're doing to Gaza. But yet, look what they did to Spartacus, right? Their own. They destroyed 150,000 of those enslaved Romans. But they focus on Haiti and Desalin, the greatest hero to ever live on planet Earth, because this battle was a culmination. It was a culmination of Adaya Toya's work. And who was Adaya Toya? Those who follow me know she was the mother of Janjak Desalin. She was the midwife who delivered him, a Dahomean warrior. You're not going to hear this in their books. It's not even in their archives. And whatever is their archives, they switched it around for their own purposes anyways. We know the deceit of the colonist. We've lived it. We are the Haïtiens. We are the most hated people in the Caribbean. And yet here we stand on the 220th anniversary of Vertieres, able to say thank you to those generals. Gabbard, he was only about 27, young soldier, who went up the top of that mountain where Rochambeau was at Fort Vertieres, or Clairvaux, who was with him, right? Or Jean-Philippe. Do we know who they are? We know about Kapwa Lamò, and I'm going to tell you about this magnificent man whose name has become synonymous with glory and honor for what he did at Vertieres. So for Desalin, his story starts as an enslaved young boy without a mother. And this Mino, this mother warrior, takes the children at the plantation of Duclos. She works the third shift. You know, when Desalin talks about the ocean rising up and destroying all the troops coming into Haiti, he's getting that from Adaya Toya. She went through that middle passage, the most horrible journey for a warrior mother. That's what Mino means. She came out of the Dahomean Empire, at that time fighting for its life like most of West Africa. But if you watch their stories, like Woman King, they don't start with the triumph of Vertieres. No, they go almost 100 years later, right? Because eventually the Dahomean warriors are destroyed and decimated by who? The very people we are going to beat right now at Vertieres in 1803. You see, you must understand this enemy. He is vicious. He knew what Adaya Toya did and the Dahomeans did in Haiti. The Congo women did in Haiti. He will change his archives so that they're invisible, like I'm invisible. Many of you have never heard of Èzili Dantò. So here we are. Adaya Toya is a mighty warrior from the military society of Dahomey. And that's how Desalin's story starts. That's how Vertieres starts. She goes through the middle passage. Imagine a warrior woman who takes up arms because they are tired of seeing their children be sold in the slave trade so that they can protect their community. They're called mother warriors. On August 14, 1791, the spirit that activated this revolution was the spirit of Èzili Dantò, the name I carry. Like Desalin's name, it horrifies all the integrated Negroes. As a matter of fact, they're constantly talking about it because I disrupt their profit over people system. Are you a disruptor? Or are you just like grinding, taking care of your rent, and letting these Neanderthals just do whatever they want to planet Earth? Adaya Toya did not do that, even though she had suffered, captured. Imagine the bragging rights these men on this ship would have, hurting her, a warrior. And I'm not going to go through all of the details, but on that middle passage, just like right now with the missionaries in Africa, the northerners who come in the Catholic Church, they're all about pedophilia. They're all about rape. That is their culture. And there were men. This is historical. It's a fact. You can look it up. I have tons of books that got themselves hired on these slave ships so they can go down to where the enslaved women and men were and rape them while their hands are tied. They used to leave the woman's legs open, the better to just take their sadistic actions. By that time that was over, by the time the Africans were brought up from that ship's hull, many of them, you know it, the Congos, the Igbos, they did everything to go back to the water, to go back to Ambadlo Nangiden, where all potentiality lives, so that they wouldn't have to face this animal. They committed infanticide if they got pregnant from the rape of these animals. They committed, they drowned themselves. They did everything. The lifespan of Haitians in Haiti was between 3 to 6 or 7 years. That's it, because they worked them to death after breaking them or trying to break them, doing the Middle Passage with these Rochambeau type folks that are now in our lands doing the same thing at orphanages. Adaya Toya was sold to the Duclos plantation. She delivered Desalin, and she started watching and observing. She noticed that a lot of the people were subservient, subjugated, and she went up the mountains to find the Maroons. She would come back and raise the warriors who did this revolution in Vertieres, who are invisible, like I am. So she had a name. They had like a little clinic in each of those plantations, and because of her, a warrior is not just someone who cuts out evil with good with their swords, but they also heal, and that was their military society. That was how that worked in the universe. So she was a healer and a midwife, and they put her, after she worked during the day within this space where people who the European would castrate, who were half killed by beatings and floggings, 6-year-old girls who were sodomized, boys, men. That was her job, is to try to give them some solace, some healing. You all know that in 1757, 1758, Macandal, who was the precursor to Bookman of 1791, the start of the Haitian Revolution, some of them would want to go, and she would administer whatever medicine would make it easy for them not to have to continue to breathe the same air as the French. And it's now 13 years of war. At Boakai, they call it Boakaima. I now teach it's Bokai Mambo Inan. That is the Nomen de Mesure plantation. Near there, there's a bunch of grottes. There's a bunch of caves. Lots of caves. Remember, Haiti is a space of more mountains than any other place in the Caribbean, maybe even America. It just has, it's a land of mountains. And inside those mountains were the routes and the tools that the people used to get from one space to the other. And so that's how we had 1791, the Vodun ceremony that began the Haitian Revolution. And of course, Grande Brigitte, who was a spiritual advisor to Desalin, was there. Mambo Inan. I'm not going into all those because you guys know I've gone into it. Right now, we're just going to focus on Desalin and Adaya Toya. And once we finish doing some of the specifics of Vertieres, we will then talk about this case that I have brought together with the Haitian Lawyers Leadership and Èzili Dantò of Omand in Haiti against the illegal government in Haiti for trying to bring in more invasion to Haiti. We'll talk about that. So Adaya Toya worked the third shift. After she finished working in the hospital, she worked the third shift, which was where, because she was delivering the babies, she knew the children. And she was using her hoe and her sixth. I'm not sure I know how to pronounce that very well, but it's that very sharp curve end that they use to rake, kind of, the remains of what the day worker, the field worker, had finished doing. Right? They had the children go out and do that. It was in that space that she raised Janjak Desalin as a boy. And with those instruments of farming, the machete, the hoe, and that scythe thing, okay, that she taught them how to fight while they were supposed to be on that third shift cleaning up what the day laborers who had cut the cane or the work of the coffee plantations. And that's how she raised Desalin. She taught him how to shoot, how to do hand-to-hand combat, how to understand the direction depending on where the sun is, where the moon is, and what were the meaning of the different plants and fauna all around him. This man grew up to become the greatest hero. He finished the job of the Minos that had started. He finished the jobs of the Congos that had started. These were military society that were fighting the colonists in Africa, and they brought them to Haiti. And they're the ones that so 1791, the revolution starts. By 1802, lots of things happens. The Europeans were fighting each other, the British against the British against the French, and then the Spanish was thought they could just take over the entire island. Remember, we had the Santo Domingo on the other side of us, so they were fighting each other. But by 1802, there was a truce, and Napoleon sent his he sent so many soldiers to try to re-enslave the Africans. For those who don't know the in-between story between 1791 to 1802, please go and I do this. I have tons of it's been since 2004. So for 19 years, we have done teach-ins. And so you can get an education right in our resources, right? Just go to this Free Haiti movement, Free Haiti movement, which that is listening to me today. Thank you all. Twitter, thank you all. And YouTube. And you will find whatever current stuff is going on. Normally for the teach-ins, I'll do a thread. So you'll see threads with regard to Vertieres of past presentations. I was just making sure you all can hear me. Let me just check online. So this is where we are. Give me a moment. I should have checked before just to make sure you guys can hear me. So it's been 13 years of war. You have the mulatto sons of France. You have the free Africans. You have the Maroons. These are different African people who have different statuses within this space. So in that armada, there came a bunch of men. Okay, let me just see if I am you. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think you can hear me. Yes, I was listening to myself just to make sure. Okay, I'll show you guys. I put on my I don't know if you can see it. Anyways, just to make sure that you guys can see me. So I went and looked at. So I'm looking at myself here. All right. Anyways, it looks like you can see me. Okay. I think. All right. So just double checking. All right. So here we are. Okay, I have what? Oh my goodness, lots of comments. Let me see. Let me just check these comments. Oh, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. All right, double checking. All right, so, all right. So if you want to know the work of Èzili Dantò, the Èzili Network, the Haitian Lawyers Leadership, Èzili Dantò of Free Haiti. Like I said, we're on social media. We're on TikTok. I actually just started TikTok because I'm not that kind of person. But I realized that people don't read. I spent decades writing. So now I'm going to try to do more of these. If you guys appreciate this, I will try. I'm just a worker mostly. I don't like to just talk unless I have a reason. But today we have a reason. We have a reason to celebrate that we are still here fighting back. Oh, Aisha, I love you. I love you. I love you. Black people, with all my heart. I'm so glad I'm part of the tribe. I can't tell you. So, um, it's October 1803, people, and everything is converging. Napoleon is trying to re-enslave Haiti. Okay, remember Toussaint and all of that. We just had almost 13 years of fighting. We fought the Spanish, the British, the French, and by the time 1801 comes together, Toussaint is in charge of Haiti. He goes to Santo Domingo to activate the Treaty of Basel, Base, where we when we started out, we fought the we don't make arms, and this is really important with regards to my lawsuit, because everything I'm saying right now, nothing really has changed with these savages, these colonists. They make up arms, and they use it to kill. They use it to human traffic, which is slavery. So that's kind of where we are. And of course, they brought back the Arabs to Haiti to try to see if they can pacify us. I just saw a Lebanese with William Ruto, Mr. What is his name? Abinader, talking about we want to pacify Haiti. You see, our situation is untenable. We are half occupied. We are the island of Haiti, and to this east, you have the Spanish. Of course, they don't know their roots. They have brought a lot of immigrants in there, specifically Syrians and Lebanese. These people that come from that tradition, racist, hate Haitian, hate the blood that's in them, and so that's where we are. But on October 1803, Toussaint Louverture had been kidnapped by Leclerc. They deceived him because Toussaint was from a royal family in Alada, same place, same area of Adaya Toya. His father was captured and brought to, or grandfather, some people say. So he was raised knowing diplomacy, or how to do diplomacy, because he came from that line, and he was fortunate enough to have these wars that was going on between the Europeans, right? The white tribes were fighting each other for land that didn't even belong to them, right? The Louisiana Purchase was sold by Jefferson as if, excuse me, by Napoleon as if he actually owned it, right? That there's no people there. And that's what they do, right? They did the Conference of Berlin. And this is after Haiti. But yeah, right? If you read their books, they act like, oh, we're the enlightened. We're enlightened. It's like, well, what happened to, if you're so enlightened, why were you doing carving up Africa? If you're so enlightened, why are you bombing Gaza to smithereens? If you're so enlightened, why is profit more important than people? If you're so enlightened, why can't you leave Haiti alone? If you're so enlightened, I'll tell you why. October, oh, now I can see you guys. Hello. Thank you so much. I should have been looking at this. Okay. Honor and respect to all of you. Honor and respect to everyone writing in the comments. Mike, you can answer some of them because I certainly can't do both. But hello, Isaac, everyone I see here. Good vibes. Thank you so much for being here. So Okay, so if you don't know what happened between 1791 and 1802, I have tons of information on my YouTube channel, on my Èzili Dantò.com channel, website, and you can catch up, okay? Because my next teaching, right? We do 6 every year. And we do them because in 2004, when the colonists came back on the bicentennial, the 200th year anniversary, the ancestors called to me. I could not just continue on as a lawyer without coming to defend the people of Haiti, and that's what I've been doing. So we and I realize that the media is so important, right? They create narratives that have nothing to do with our reality, and we need more people to change the narrative that they're creating about us. And today, I am changing the narrative that they create about Janjak Desalin and how they make this battle invisible. Okay. And so I ask you to comment, to share, to make this video go everywhere as you watch this, because so October 1803, Napoleon sends his brother-in-law in February 1803 to come and decimate the Haitian, the population that was there. Like I told you, there's 500,000 enslaved, and then there's countless in the mountains, and then you have about 20,000 white folks, another 20 or 30,000 free people. I could have switched the 20 and the 30 with the free and the and the whites, but that's how it looked like, right? Because they're so arrogant, right? 500,000 enslaved, and they have their religion telling them what they're doing is godly. But Bookman in 1791 said, the white man's God wants to commit crimes. There's nothing truer than that. We must listen to the voice of liberty that sings within our hearts. So imagine fighting all your life, and now you've been free since 1793, and Toussaint has fought with Desalin, with Clairvaux, with Christophe, with Woman, and it's been a bloody fight. And you've beat 50,000 Englishmen in Haiti. You've repulsed and gotten rid of the Spanish from Santo Domingo. And now, in February, late January of 1802, you look out and there's a sea of ships that have come to re-enslave you. The first thing to understand is that we are a spiritual people. And Desalin was raised by a warrior and a spiritual woman. He knew Grande Brigitte, the wife of Macandal. He knew Mambo Inan, who was the priestess at Bokai Mambo Inan on August 14th. Because his education was done by these Maroons. And I always like to tell people that we all have a place. Not everybody can be Èzili Dantò, can face evil and not cower, or can face evil and not be bought out. We had all of those factors in the revolution. Remember, Bookman was an overseer. You know what that is, right? He was the one beating up people for the European. There were a lot of overseers who helped start the Haitian Revolution. So even the school Negroes, I always say, they have a place if you read and understand the Haitian Revolution. And so I'm going to say some names that you probably don't know. You know how you go and you see the market women of Haiti today? The Saranuyas. They came from a space. They were warriors in Africa. And market women played a very important role in the Haitian Revolution, just like they are doing right now. But we are invisible. The warrior women, Adaya Toya, Mambo Inan, or Dede Magritte. Mambo Inan was maroon, right? She lived in the forest with the Maroons, right? It was at her space that the revolution started, near the Normand de Mézières plantation. And so here we have 30,000 troops. And Napoleon sent 50,000, but 20,000 he left over in Louisiana territory because he had the idea of taking over the 13 colonies, right? And building an empire in the West. But by the time October 1803 came along, they had sent those 20,000 troops for reinforcement for Leclerc. Leclerc is now dead. He November 2nd, 1803, I believe, from yellow fever. And these women had a lot to do with pushing that, you understand? Because they understood that there was nothing for them except death if Leclerc's army won. I mean, it's Leclerc, and I've said this all the time, Leclerc wrote to Napoleon and said, hey, you can't leave one soldier alive in this island. These people are not going to give up their freedom. Somebody tell Ariel Henry that. We are not giving up our freedom, okay? Tell the PH to Kamakuts that today. So Leclerc said to Napoleon, we have to kill every single person on this island that ever fought back, that ever wore a uniform, and all women, children who are above the age of 12. These are the enlightened people. These are the beautiful people. He came to do genocide. And yet, when you read these books, next time I'm going to tell you their names because the spirit wants me to say a name right now. I'm going to hold off. When you read these books, they ignore what Rochambeau was doing to us, human beings. You know, Kapwa Lamò said after Vertieres, I am a man. I am human. That was what Vertieres stood for. I am human. They still think we're not human. These vampires that can't see themselves. So Napoleon is rampaging across Europe, winning all these battles, and he sends his veteran troops. We are barefoot without arms. What do we have? We have the mountains, people. Listen to me and hear me, Haïtien. We have the spirit of all those who drowned in that Middle Passage, 100,000 Africans. Their only resting place in the Atlantic is Haiti. Hear me if you can. Their only resting place is in the legacy of Janjak Desalin and Adaya Toya. And on that day of November 18th, they were gods. Desalin knew what he was doing. He was connected to the earth. He was connected to the ocean of all the Middle Passage spirits. He was connected to Brise Montagne, the mountain breeze of the ancients. So he leaves Guanayve and heads to Cap Haïtien, because by then we had already taken all of the positions of the Napoleon army, and they were all dying off, right? We were poisoning their water. We were doing all that was necessary to survive, because self-defense is a human right. I say that as a lawyer reading their books. And so when I always like to say this, because I think we miss it. We miss it. We miss the women, the children. These women and children, some of them were small. Marie-Jeanne was not even 11, maybe 11 years old in 1791. So was Marie-Louise. Marie-Louise was 13. Cécile Fatima was maybe 16 to 20 years old. That's it. These are the people that fought. They fought on a spiritual level. Cécile Fatima fought. And her trainer was Mambo Inan, Gun Giton. They were free Black women who knew that they had no other life but to be the semen receptacles of any of these savages, because they were creating these mulattoes in order to have more that looked like them, but their life was horrible. If you were in the marketplace and some white person didn't like what you were wearing and thought it looked too European or civilized, they will rip it off of you. That's what they were doing to the free people. So the free people also had an incentive to get rid of this colonist. And the women didn't have any choice. They were going to that school over at Cap Haïtien. And in that school, you had the Catholic Dédés from the Congo. Remember, the Congo was was Christianized. And they used Catholicism to destroy the system that vies for the souls of Black folks. What are you doing today in these Abrahamic religion spaces? Are you doing what the Dédés did? Right? Can you say coupe tête, boule kai, and be in that Catholic church in Cap Haïtien like Dédé Magritte, who had the first peristyle, but disguised it as a Catholic temple? But this was a location, just like the location of Henri Christophe's person. The person who actually bought him was Marie-Louise's father. And I always say this too, right? If you don't have the spirit of Pétuo like I do, the fighting spirit, the confrontational spirit, and you're more Rada like Toussaint, right? There's spaces for you. What did Croix David do? The father of Marie-Louise, who was a free Black man, and he owned a hotel in Cap Haïtien, a space where all the Rochambeau degenerate would come to find Black women and prostitutes and so on. A place where we heard all the news about what was happening because they didn't think like we were listening. A place where we met in the back doors. But Christophe, Henri Christophe, was bought out of slavery by a Black man who raised him as a son, and he married his daughter, Marie-Louise. Think about that. Because when they're writing their books, they're like, oh, Toussaint owned slaves. They think we were like them. We have never been like them. Who else bought someone out of another freeman that you must know? Jean-Baptiste Desalin, a Black man. When the time was ready, Adaya Toya arranged for Desalin to get out of slavery, and he was bought out of slavery by a Black man who taught him a trade, a carpenter. And that's why Desalin in his 1805 Constitution says every single Haitian should have something that they can do to make a living, a trade. All right. So Napoleon comes and he sends 50,000 troops. 20 are in Louisiana, and then we have the ones in that lands in Haiti. We have fought them, and they have lost all the major ports. One of the things that I always talk about is that when they saw this is something to remember. They said, we will go inside. So they lost the port cities at first to the European, and they let them come in. They didn't go fighting them, trying to stop them from disembarking. They went to the mountains. And in those mountains, they sat with the Maroons and the spirit of the ocean, the spirit of the Middle Passage, the spirit of Brise Montagne, the spirit of Gouache. They sat there until they got the forces. And now it's October 1802, and Desalin is moving from Guanaïve. By the time he gets to Lembe, there's 27,000 African soldiers and women fighting Leclerc's troops. And their last stronghold is Cap-Haïtien. And Rochambeau is in Cap-Haïtien. You guys, I say it all the time. Rochambeau was like a chien enragé, right? He did the first Auschwitz. He would put people in the hulls of ship and put sulfur and just gas them to death. He would kill babies. He would kill, just murder people, right? And he told everyone what he was going to do to Janjak Desalin when he got him. So Desalin is at the head of this group of barefoot, some of them on horses, most of them barefoot, most of them with machetes, some of them with, lugging the cannons that they had gotten from each of the times that they beat the Europeans. Guess who wasn't there? Pétion wasn't there. So what do you have? At Vertieres, they come to Lembe. Like I said, there's about 27,000 of them. They know that the last stronghold of the European is at Cap-Haïtien. Cap-Haïtien is well fortified, maybe about 8 forts. And then, there's a mountain range, and then at its front, there's the ocean, and then there's a river, right? And in between. So, but it was very hard to come into these 4 forts. So Desalin gave everyone a job. The battle started at 4:00 in the morning. But I want to tell you first that on his way up to Cap-Haïtien, Desalin stopped. This is important, Haïtien, at Bokay-Mamboinon. He stopped there where the revolution started. Okay. And maybe one day, for those of you who are on my Patreon, we can talk about that a little bit deeper, right? Because time is moving here. So he stopped at Bokay Mamboinan at the Plantation de Mézières. And then he gave assignments to all his generals how to attack these forts. What they didn't want is for the French to go up the mountains that was in the back of them. So they drew them out. And the first place, this is important too, the first place, because we are spiritual people and we don't fight by ourselves. The first, when that fight started at Vertieres, it started at the plantation where Toussaint Louverture was first enslaved. It started at Fort Breda, 4:00 in the morning. 11 hours later, the French were wiped out. So Vertieres took 11 hours for us to do because we came with spirit. So the first generals that attacked was Christophe and Womet at a fort called La Vigie. And within a couple of hours, they had dominated that fort, and he started Desalin. Then Capois was over at Barrière Bouteille, which is another one. Rochambeau was there in Cap-Haïtien. And then you had Clairvaux, who started it all at Fort Breda. And so Desalin sends Kapwa Lamò to go after Rochambeau, because Rochambeau now is being his fort in Cap-Haïtien. He's losing. He runs to Vertieres. Vertieres has a mountain on top of it, right? Called Charrier. And then there's a fort. And then underneath there's a bridge to get to the fort. So Kapwa Lamò has to go under this bridge, and he's being fired upon by Rochambeau. And Rochambeau's sitting there in the ramparts with his European uniform on, just constantly firing at Kapwa Lamò. And you all know the story, right? This man never stopped. He was Avanse, right? I started this with Grenadye Alaso. So on their march from Guanaïve up to Cap-Haïtien, 27,000 Haitians, enslaved people, and all the ones they were catching along the way. That was the song that they sung. It was deafening. They knew there's no mothers here. They were children. There's no fathers here. They were their kids. There's only soldiers. So their children could have fallen. Their father could have fallen. Their grandfather could have fallen, right? That's the song that they sung, because they had gotten your news already. They knew these people was about deceit, that there was no way they were going to, what they were telling Toussaint and Desalin and so on, the generals. So that's how they started. I think I'm going to see if I can look at some of your questions. So I don't need to go through it. You guys can go to the last couple of ones I did where I talk about how Kapwa Lamò, trying to cross that bridge with his troops. They were just, being mowed down. And he just kept saying, forward, 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 forward. And that's what I'm saying right now. We are being mowed down, right? They even got a bunch of Negroes, Knegrow, right, to be killing us. So that's the best thing that a white man can do. That's like the art of war, right? Get not shed his blood, get you to kill yourself, so that he could come in and now bring what they, some racial front like Kenya. All right. So So yeah, so that's kind of how it happened, right? So Womain, Clairvaux, Gabar, and Christophe have taken Cap Haïtien, and what you have left is this fort. So as Kapwa Lamò is pushing in, right? His hat flies off from a bullet, they say. He keeps going. His horse is killed. He keeps going, and so on. Y'all know the story. Okay, so Desalin, who was like sitting on gouache, right, with his tobacco, because he already knew where we were, right, and directing everything. And Adaya Toya and all the women. I mean, the songs were deafening. The music was deafening. They psyched out the remaining Napoleon troops. And Rochambeau, like I said, Desalin sent Gabar, like I said, a young soldier, to go up that mountain that he wanted Kapwa Lamò to go up to, the Charrier. And so here you are now. You have Gabar, you have Clairvaux, Jean-Philippe shooting at the fort where Rochambeau is, from the top of that mountain. And then underneath, you have Kapwa Lamò's troops. They all converge. Bullets are coming from the top, bullets are coming from the bottom. Rochambeau surrenders. You guys see that, okay? But Rochambeau hated the mulattoes. He was always, of course, having sexual relationship with them, but he felt very inferior to, let's say, Boyer. I mean, Boyer came in with Pétion, right? These two mulatto folks who ended up killing Desalin later on. But they came to re-enslave. They came as generals of the French army. But because of all of the killing, and they realized that they were not going to even have civil rights, so they joined in with Desalin. But this Rochambeau guy, and this keeps going on right now, and Black men have to understand that. I don't know if I'm gonna try to show it to you a little bit. The white women wanted these men, and Rochambeau was jealous as hell, right? Because Napoleon's sister was, I'm not going to say she was a whore. What's that word? I can't think of a good word to say what she was. But she brought her dresses. She came with Leclerc, her husband, but she was having an affair with Pétion, the mulatto who would end up becoming president of Haiti with Boyer after Pétion, right? So when he was watching this, it bugged the hell out of this little aristocratic guy, right? And in Europe, you had Joseph Boulogne. I've said this before. These Africans who get an education, and within one generation, they're doing things, amazing things that these little Europeans who get their title from their fathers can't do, right? Joseph Boulogne was like the greatest fencer in Europe, and he was a Black man. And he was the one that he was also a violinist. I think I have that. Let's do that, and then I'm going to read questions. I think you guys let's do that for a minute, okay? And then I'm going to read some questions.
The mulattoes, because he hated them, because back in Europe, the mulattoes were a lot. Some of them were very prized by the white women, and they hated that. At that time, one of the greatest musician, composer, Joseph Born, taught Mozart. And he was, at that time, he beat them at their own game. The way you see now in sports, he was the greatest fencer. in Europe, a black man, a mulatto man, who had some chances to come out of Guadeloupe and be educated in France and then, move up the ranks. And some say he was even sleeping with the king's wife, Marie Antoinette. So these petty aristocrats who had land in Haiti and who, their claim to fame was they were aristocrats, when these Africans were showing them up on every field at that level, when they were in Haiti, Rochambeau was killing the mulattoes. So they got together with the Africans for a minute to beat the Napoleon. But then soon the priest and such who started in their ear again, and of course they always had that colorism. So they killed Desalin, and eventually brought back the educational system of the Pope. And so now Haitian elites became part of the, you could call them the talented tenth, thinking they were better than the masses, and maintaining Eurocentricity. But Africans have always lived apart from all that mess in the rural areas. They created their own system, and they try to stay away from this government system. And what I like to you guys to understand is that at the Free Haiti movement that I created back in 2004, during the bicentennial of Haiti's independence, when the Europeans came back, we adopt the 1805 Constitution of Janjak Desalin, our founding father. Remember, one of the major generals was Toussaint Louverture, but Napoleon had kidnapped him out of Haiti, and he was dead by the time we became independent, tortured his wife in all kinds of ways. I say her name, Marie-Suzanne Louverture. And so today, last week, the U.S. just keeps coming back because Haitians, we fight back. We from one generation to the next. But they control the media. They show us as savages. But demonize us in order to figure out a way to stay in Haiti because of the resources we have in Haiti. So I just told you that the 3.2 billion from the diaspora keeps our people in the rural area. The United States has all these sorts of covers, right? In 2004, they got rid of the first democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. He was my client. That's how I came into the picture. That's where and how I entered. And they got rid of him. They actually did what they did to Toussaint Louverture, kidnapped him from his house, president, and deported him to a French colony over Central Africans, the Central Africa. And since that time, for the last 30 years, we've been fighting back. But they have the media. They don't have Brother Muhammad's narrative. They have the colonial narrative. The U.S. keeps putting in puppet like they do in all of the nations of the Caribbean and all of the nations in Africa. These puppets they've adopted. They killed Toussaint Louverture for it. He wanted to do a black-ruled French colony. But that's the standard now in the Caribbean nations. All these black prime ministers are ruling on behalf of the Queen or the Dutch or the United States. Haiti is the one still fighting back. You still see people in the streets whenever they put it in a dictator. Right now we have a dictator. His name is Ariel Henry. He's the one that asked for Kenya to come, because the United States wants a racial front to its plunder. And what it really cannot stop doing is depopulating Haiti. So
Grenadye Alaso, Sakimui zafè yo, nanpren maman, nanpren papa. Sakimui zafè yo, Grenadye Alaso, sakimui
Okay.
zafè
And I
yo.
just got to get rid of whatever that song is.
Nanpren papa.
Stop.
Sakimui
All right, people.
zafè
I think
yo.
now I can take some questions. If any of you have any, I'm going to be looking at the
Grenadye
chat. Mike is going to
Alaso,
be helping me.
sakimui zafè yo.
You
Nanpren
all should know that
manman,
song. It
nanpren
just doesn't want to go
papa.
away from my.
Sakimui
Oh,
zafè
I love you, Akata. Thank you so much because you're always here.
yo.
I do. Could you expand on why Haiti eventually lost its independence and paid them a whole lot of reparation? I think you said the mulattoes weakened Haiti. Okay. Yes. See, the thing is, within 2 years of our independence, the mulattoes, Patron, Boyer, and those guys, they always have the European in their ear, right? It's telling them that they're more civilized, they're French, they're not like this African Desalin. So they assassinated Desalin on October 17th, 1806. And that was the beginning of what we call neocolonialism, where you have a nation that's no longer free. It's being run by Black males, Patron. And then the top general of Dessalines at that time, of course, when he became emperor, was Christophe. And they somehow deceived Christophe, and he ended up going back to the north. And in Haiti, there was a civil war. And so when you have a civil war and you're fighting each other, like right now in Haiti, there are Haitians who are killing other Haitians, and they're getting their guns from the United States. They're getting their power from the colonists. That's what happened. Pétion got his power from the French. Who, like I said, even to this day, their academics can't say the name Vertieres. Remember, I told you Pétion wasn't at Vertieres, but they could forgive him. They can't forgive Desalin. You understand? Clairvaux, the first Declaration of Independence was signed by 3 men. Remember, I told you that Clairvaux, he was a mulatto. So it wasn't just because that they were, they had their fathers were French. It was the content of their character. You understand? So Clairvaux actually killed more whites than Dessalines did. But no European writing a book says that. They all focus on Dessalines. But Clairvaux started Vertieres, remember that. He started the first bombardment of up there at the Breda fort. So the 3 generals that signed the November 29 Declaration of Independence after Vertieres, right? So Vertieres was 18th, and then like 10 days later, they go to what now they call it Fort Liberté, the Fort of Freedom, because of what happened, right? Because we won our freedom. So it was signed the November 29th, first Declaration of Independence was signed by Desalines, Christophe, and Clairvaux. And he was a mulatto. But then you have the other mulattoes, okay, who are being, having the European in their, who hate Desalines, who hate the fact that Desalines just created this nation, and who's hearing all of the shock of the white man. And so the first coup d'etat started then. And when that coup d'etat happened against Desalines, we've been colonized indirectly since. So that's kind of what happened. But what I always tell people is this: who got colonized? it was the men who believed in the European system, who believe in their fake democracy and what Desalin called the phantoms of liberty. But the rest of the population, they wanted nothing to do with it. So today, when you're watching what's happening in Haiti, there's a core group of colonists from different from enslaving nations. Germany, you know what Germany did with the conference of Berlin, right? The core group is made up of Germany, who helped destroy Africa, chop it up like little bits, and because we believe in their system. All these 54 Africans want to be president of what? This little piece of land? Instead of uniting together and go facing the European outwardly, they face each other. And then the European can use them to fight each other while he plunders. It is so basic, but patriarchy doesn't allow for the voices of women like me to be heard. Because all of Africa is my children. All of Haiti is my children. But, they all want to be president of what? The Syrian Lebanese control the ports in Haiti and 98% of the economy. I have no idea what they're being president of. And Africa, it's the same dynamic. But they still want the European system. They actually have been trained in their schoolings to believe there's like such a thing as democracy in America, right? We've got the duopoly, and they switch places every couple of years, and they call that democracy. Nothing changes for anybody except the elites running the planet. So that's what happened. I hope I answered your question, but we fight on. And if you have an eye, what does ballet? Ballet. I don't know. Did I say that? Could you try to be a little bit more specific about ballet? Okay. The status of Kenyan soldier, and they want desecrate Citadel Lafayette by turning it into a play. There's always some Haitian who loves like the francophones, and if the puppets are in power, they will desecrate the specific sacred places of Haiti. It's a psychological war. That's all that is. And Haitian women lost a lot in this war. I told you guys about Adaya Toya. She ended up seeing freedom and God. She didn't see the destruction of Desalin in 1806 because she died from her wounds. She would never put on a French uniform. You see, this is the problem. Our people, they want to be Eurocentric. She never put on a French uniform, but she had her own troops. And I'm working with artists right now to put out a small graphic book about Adaya Toya. And she's holding that spear that the Dahomians normally hold, right? But hers is curved because it's a farm instrument that she turned into a spear. But she died in 1805 from her wounds of fighting the French. But she died in the palace of Janjak Desalin, and he was besides himself with grief, telling the doctors, got to treat her like she's me because she raised me. And she had like a beautiful sending away, going home. It was yeah. All right, people, you have a sweet little girl's voice. Who is like, this is what you guys writing? Let me see. Can you repost your question about the song? And I will post. Okay. So she knows which songs. I don't know what she's talking about. Okay. I'm reading some of the comments. Maybe. Okay. Only one type of man will say that you said and see it as a compliment. I don't know. Okay. The song that was playing, oh, it's okay, so this is the Haitian fight song, right? It's Grenadye, that's soldiers, attack, Alaso. There's no mothers here, nanpren maman, nanpren papa. Whoever dies, that's their problem. We're just going to move forward, forward, forward. We don't seem to understand that today. Like, we will sell out because we have to do our children's education. What are you educating them into? The Africans were ancient people. They understood that life here is just one part of their journey. And they were happy to go back to Guinea, to this place, what they call Ambadlo na Guinée. So that was the song. Grenadye Alaso, Saki mouri zafè yo, nanpren maman, nanpren papa, Saki mouri zafè yo. So Grenadye, attack, attack, attack. There's no fathers here, there's no mothers here. Attack, attack, attack. This song has been passed on to us. This was the song I told you, 27,000 people. We've already destroyed Napoleon's army, right? 50,000 Frenchmen. They're going up, and that's the song they're singing on the road to Cap Haïtien. That's the song that was sung on November 18th, because of course they felt the pain of their children being blown up by cannons, right? And the I said it before, I forgot the name of it. I think in French it's called mitrailleur. They had this like prototype for a machine gun. You know, they put it into two big wheels, and then it would shoot. They would crank it up. It would shoot a lot. It was what Napoleon thought was going to destroy and make the Africans give up. But they just kept running into these things like Kapwa Lamò. So that was the song that they sung. All right, people, it is now 3:38. I don't know if you have any more questions, but I think we have covered Vertieres. Let me talk to you a little bit about a case that I just brought in against the government. But you can ask me questions, and I will continue to try to answer if I see anything. So on November 6th of this year, you guys, a team of lawyers headed by me and Evel Fanfan in Haiti, we brought a lawsuit against the de facto illegitimate government of Haiti for trying to bring in foreign troops. You know that the UN, the UN did a resolution where it allowed for a Chapter 7 shoot to kill mission in Haiti, even though those kinds of chapters go for countries that are at war. So that suit, I really would appreciate all of you reading it. It's on my website at EziliDantò.com. I'm going to put that in the chat. And letting all Africans know that we are doing this, because obviously, you know, it's not past these people to try to destroy us and kill us for having the for filing these actions. But we filed this action. If you go to EziliDantò.com, you'll actually see the complaint. And essentially, we make a couple of points. The points that we make is that number one, Ariel Henry was appointed by the core group of nations. Remember, there's like 6 of them, right? Former enslavers who they're doing a Berlin conference, unity against us. That's what the core group is. It's a mafia of colonists who get advantages from coming together as one fist against Haiti. And they're made of the greatest powers on the planet, right? The United States, France, Canada, Spain, Brazil, and Germany. Okay, so don't talk to me about no Lula and how these buffer races are not racist. So the points that we make is that that Henry has no constitutional right to request for foreign troops to come to Haiti, that he's illegitimate and his whole government was never elected. And that's in violation. It's a crime of treason. And we say that, obviously the United Nations is not respecting the sovereign right of Haitian, because they work on this theory of this government, right? That doesn't represent us as being our leaders. That's why I was telling you, that was one of the fatal mistakes of after the revolution. We couldn't even imagine how to think of entering into a system of governance that had nothing to do with the former enslavers. Because as soon as you enter a system of governance that is part of their system, they control you, right? The state is corporatized. They control all the economics, and then they control this figurehead. But let me tell you, they never represented us. These people playing games of thrones in Port-au-Prince, they don't represent the majority of Haitian, period. There's 5 million Haitian overseas, and there's 13 million in Haiti. Okay? They don't represent us. They represent themselves and their pockets and paying their rent. So we as Africans are a people of different values and interests than profit. So this democracy of the European that Desalin called phantoms of liberty, you're being the president of what? So no. But we're using their establishment to make the point and to say this. Not only did the United States is the only one that's holding up with its guns and media and military this imposter called Henry and his whole government, right? And that violates the Haitian Constitution. But we say, if the United Nations, that criminal organization that left us with 30,000 Haitians dead of cholera and 1 million sick and put their feces in our water to kill us, if that criminal organization wanted to do something that was palpable, there's 2 things they could do. Instead of sending for the puppet William Ruto in Kenya to come and make a deal with our naked enemy, Abinader in the Dominican Republic, try to push us into the Pacific Ocean. If we're dealing on their territory, I don't deal on their territory, but sometimes, if that's the only language my people understand, then this lawsuit is that language. So we say that all the guns that are being given to the right-wing paramilitary groups that the United States is calling gangs in Haiti that proliferated after Jovenel Moïse was assassinated by agents of the United States, Colombia mercenaries trained by the United States, FBI, CIA, DEA agents, Many of them, two of them at least, have pled guilty in Miami court. Former DEA agents under Biden. So all of this happened under Biden, right? The U.S. agents killed Jovenel because he tried to find allies like Russia and Turkey. So he was playing the sort of Toussaint Louverture game, right? Of playing them once against the other. And they just killed him. And that proliferated and released these groups. And the guns are coming from Miami, and there's a report. So this is what we say. Please read the let's see if I can put it back up. Yeah, please read the complaint. It's at EziliDantò.com. The PDF of the and send it out to all of the, because like they make as if we didn't do this, like we didn't file lawsuits. You know about the lawsuit in Kenya, where the Kenyan court said that their constitution, lawyers bringing action in Kenya said that their constitution is being violated because there's a requirement that the person asking for the troops have legitimacy. ILNE doesn't have legitimacy. And also there's a requirement that there's an approval by Parliament. The case was put into the courts before Parliament just the other day approved the sending of troops to Haiti. But the judge of that case said that you can't make null and void an action by just approving something after the fact. And so he's going to give his final decision, I think, on January 26th, about whether or not he has the power to stop the deployment, even with the approval of the Kenyan Parliament. Obviously, Ruto is the majority party. The IMF just announced all kinds of money they're going to give to Kenya. So they're all being bought off for what? To destroy Janjak Desalin's legacy. And I'm here to tell you, people, we've metastasized. We cannot be destroyed. We fight from one generation to the next. We will continue to fight. If I'm not here, someone else will be. And we say to the UN, there's two solutions. The guns going to these right-wing paramilitary forces, pushing the people off of shoreline spaces so the U.S. could come and take those places in the shoreline, where in Cité Soleil, where in Kafoufe, that the people are. That's their purpose. It's not haphazard, people. We say, stop sending those guns to Haiti and we'll take care of them. You see, we took care of 45,000 Duvalier Macoutes by ourselves with no UN. So we can't take care of these like people whose guns like bigger than their whole body, starving men being given guns and ammunitions. Yes, we can do it. We took care of the Tonton Macoutes. It wasn't no UN. It wasn't no Kenya. It was no foreigner. Haitians have already started doing it with, Bois-Calais. So yes, two things we tell them to do. And we ask you to push those two solutions instead of invading Haiti and coming to rape our poor people again the way the UN did, and leaving us with all of these children without a father. Over 500,000 for the 13 years that the minister mission was in Haiti. We say there is a resolution 2653 that says that most of the guns are coming from member states. We don't manufacture guns. So control your borders, America, and stop them from coming. And they're only coming to us through American ports and the Dominican Republic. Otherwise, these people wouldn't have any bullets to kidnap, shoot, or do any of that. And then we say that it's kind of ironic, but these countries, these colonists, they have sanctioned the Syrian Lebanese oligarchs and a lot of the PHTK political party, the new neo Duvalieris Tonton Macoutes, the men in pink that they put in power since 2004 when they got rid of the democratically elected president. So we say, those people that you have sanctioned, these billionaires of the Caribbean, like Gilbert Bijou, Wonaldib, and the others, right, who did the coup d'etat in 2004, like Michel Martelly, Yuri Latorture, and a whole bunch of there's names of all of these people out there, people. Okay, they've sanctioned them, but that's just like laughable, right? Sanctions means that supposedly they're freezing their bank accounts and they can't travel, but we see these people everywhere. It's just like toothless sanctions. So we say, stop playing with us, okay? A person like Gilbert Bijou, who's a billionaire and he is funding murder, terror, and rape in Haiti, you don't sanction him. You use the authorities and the powers of your prosecutorial offices to arrest him for murder. And so we say that's the solution, not another invasion. Well, everybody, maybe I'll take two more questions and we are we should be going. It's 3:51. Anything else, Mike? Or are we good? All right, folks. Thank you so much for coming. I hope that you've learned something and I hope that you share this video. I know, I'm sorry, the people who are on Twitter and on Facebook, on the Free Haiti Movement group, I can't see your questions, but thank you for coming. I will go and see if I can answer some of them. And this was the sound of let's see if I can, of the conch. And we're still sounding that conch haïtien, calling all Africans in Africa and the Caribbean to stand up. Hi. Hello, Justin. I see that. How are you? Thank you for stopping by. I see you, Nduku. Asante. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Until the next one, the next teach-in, which is January 1st and 2nd. Okay, and then we do the Haitian Revolution, then we do Desalin in October and September, then we do November 18th, then we do January, and then we do the 1805 Constitution, which was Desalin's Constitution before he was assassinated. It is the most important document that we have of Janjak Desalin, because he there said, where you know how when they try to give you a negative connotation, we change it. Well, Black, he says, all Haitians shall be known by the appellation Black. And so there was no mulattoes in Haiti anymore. There was no quadroons or octoroons. There were everyone, including the few Polish who fought on our side against Napoleon's armies. We definitely gave them these appellation. They were Black because they stood for lovers of liberty. And that's what we do. We are the lovers of liberty. So thank you, everyone. Mike, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I think we're good. So please share. Please share. Let me see. I know you guys may not know this. One final thing I wanted to say about Napoleon, right? There's a movie coming out, right? And I'm sure they're not going to mention the barefoot soldiers that were 3/5 human in America, because slavery did not end until like almost 60 years later in America. So that's what we were facing. You understand? So what did Vertieres do? Vertieres brought in a new moral high ground. And as I like to say, not even their greatest personage, right? Not even the Nazarene said that slavery was wrong. But Janjak Desalin and the indigenous army of Haiti said no. And we, their descendant, we say you can try to kill us, but we know that our spirit is one of good. The God that animates us doesn't want crime. We want coexistence with all sentient beings. So thank you, everyone, for coming. And until next time.
Èzili Dantò. Èzili Dantò.